Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome, Patriots, to another edition of the Raising Cain Show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a little bit different topic than our typical show. And it's one that actually I enjoy getting into, and it's we're going to be talking about technocracy. And we've got with us really the perfect guy to kind of walk us through what is going on in the world of technocracy with the elites. Patrick Woodis, the editor-in-chief of Technocracy News, is our guest tonight. But you guys know I always like to run my commercials first to get it out of the way. And so hang with us. We will be right back after a short break. We'll see you on the other side.
It says, I woke up this morning and looked out the door to a country I don't recognize. They put masks on our face to hide our pain, and there's no fire in most people's eyes. And it's still true today. It's still true today that they've tried to destroy the American spirit. And in some instances, they've done a dadgum good job. But in other instances, they have lit an inferno in some people. And we right now are gathering some of those people that are on freaking fire to save this country.
Increasing expenses have caused us all a lot of pressure these days, and it's affecting even the wealthiest of people. Most have lost their sense of security, stability, and even hope for a strong financial future. The game plan of everyone in your cell phone has likely been disrupted or even hardcore stopped, and most are looking for a creative solution to regain financial momentum. Oftentimes, life's best solutions are the simplest. But first, a question. What is something most people think they should own but don't? Crypto, fine art, real estate? Nope. We are talking about real money. The kind kings and queens fought for and large institutions today buy in mass. We're talking about gold and silver, assets that provide confidence in tough financial situations. So the question is, do you own any? If you don't, you're not alone. Most people aren't maximizing the power of precious metals because it's just been too complicated. And even though they see advertisements about gold and silver daily, they don't really know who to trust. That is, until now. The bottom line is that buying gold and silver doesn't have to be complicated or scary. There's a simple, better way to accumulate assets and create financial peace, headache-free. And this very minute, a new community of average people are seeing above-average results to the tune of tens of millions in assets over the last few years. This system is tested, it's simple, and it's not an experiment. To date, it's helped more than 80,000 people bring hope back into their lives. It's invitation only, and right now, this new community has accepted a challenge to give away as much free gold this year as possible. Curious? Learn how to get your free gold today. Check out the next step to get the details.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show. Tonight's guest is a man whose work every constitutionalist and freedom-loving American needs to know. Patrick Woodis, the editor-in-chief of Technocracy News and one of the foremost experts in exposing globalism's dark agenda through things like sustainable development, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and Technocracy. He's authored the groundbreaking series Trilaterals over Washington with the late Anthony Sutton, and is the author of his latest book, The Evil Twins of Technocracy and Transhumanism. Tonight, I'm really excited to have on our guest. Please welcome our guest. Tell me all about what technocracy is for those that are listening that may not have ever heard that term or may think they know what that term is but not understand it.
You bet. I'd be glad to. You'll be surprised how relevant this description is from 1937. He could have written it today, I think, but this has appeared on their official publication, the Technocracy magazine. They said, well, let me just back up just a minute. 1932 was a date or the year that technocracy was coined or developed at Columbia University in particular. And there were engineers and scientists at that university at that point, and they wanted to create a new economic system. It was based on resource management, and it was all about energy as well. They were going to use energy as the accounting system, if you will. And it was pretty crazy stuff, I have to say. And so when they got down to defining themselves in the Technocrat magazine, this is what they said. Number one, this is a direct quote, technocracy is the science of social engineering, the scientific operation of the entire social mechanism to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population. For the first time in human history, it'll be done as a scientific, technical engineering problem. And then it goes on. You have to hear the second part as well. That they say that there will be no place for politics, politicians, finance, or financiers, rackets or racketeers. Technocracy will distribute by means of a certificate of distribution available to every citizen's birth to death. You can kind of have a flavor of what's going on today, I think, when you understand that. And we can probably go a little bit further and discuss the Technocracy study course that was written in 1934. You'll see the mechanistic attitude that these people had. This was so twisted. They threw out all a semblance of biblical Christianity, for instance. There's no God. There's no creator. We're just
collectivism.
Yeah, we're just meat sacks. We just happen to be here, but But listen, this is a direct quote from the Technocracy study course written in 1934, as I said. Technocracy is dealing with social phenomena in the widest sense of the word. This includes not only actions of human beings, but also everything which directly or indirectly affects their actions. Consequently, the studies of technocracy embraced practically the whole field of science and industry. Now, catch this: biology, climate, natural resources, and industrial equipment all enter into the social pictures. You can see the flavor of social impact. They wanted to have a social impact with their technology, and they wanted to basically remove the political system altogether. This is really crazy stuff. They really wanted to get rid of all politicians and just appoint technocrats to run everything top to bottom.
So it sounds like, to me, it sounds just like another rumination of communism or the, utopia idea. And I see this actually today in a lot of movies, that are about the future. It's always, some future where human beings have solved the problem of solved all the world's, supply problems, and now there's no need to work, and it's this nonsense utopia. The thing that never takes into account is the human nature, of sin, and in that there will always be the corrupt, there will always be the evil that are out there, and I don't think any amount of socialism is ever going to solve that.
Probably not. And it's interesting just how crazy this was. The communist of that day, and there's a large communist party in America, by the way, in the 1930s. There really was, and it was as large as the technocrat movement. Actually, the technocrats had an organization that you had to pay to get in, and you had a card that got you into the meetings and so on. They had over 500,000 members at one time. That was a big group of people. Nevertheless, when the communists got a hold of technocracy, it blew them away, because they realized that the technocrats wanted to take man or mankind out of the equation. And so they figured, if there's no political system, if there's no class system, if you will, we're out of business. That they leveled this charge. They had a huge running argument at that point, to the extent that the technocrat movement would not allow any communist to join, period. And also any politician. They didn't want any politician in their ranks either. So here they are standing alone, saying, we're going to fix society with science and engineering, blah, blah, blah. And the communists are looking at them and say, you guys are really crazy, because you have to have man in the picture in order to do that, to have something to manage, I guess. But they were bitter enemies back then, and you can see this kind of flavor even today.
Interesting.
Against the communist movements of the world.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you got fascism, communism, what would that be? Technocratism? I'm not exactly sure.
Just technocracy. I don't know. Yeah, there's no ism. Yeah.
so you've got all of these groups. They all seem to have in common this idea of authoritarianism. And
yes.
How in the world would technocrats, if they are not engaged in politics, and they say they won't be politicians, how would they expect to institute their ideology? And do you feel like they have, to a certain degree, succeeded in their plan?
Yes, they have. And this is an interesting thing. Back in 1933, when FDR was just coming in, there was a book written by a leading technocrat of that day, who appealed to FDR to declare himself dictator in order to appoint technocrats. They designed like an org chart for the whole country, and they handed the whole thing. They said, just appoint technocrats, we'll take over from here. And FDR, he's a politician, right? He understood that wouldn't be good for him, because he'd be the first guy that got thrown under the bus.
Sure.
So he didn't do it. However, he did invite a lot of these people into his administration, and we probably have some of them left over. At least the semblance of it is still left over in the political system today. But this was clearly an assault on everything American. The Constitution, private property. In fact, they didn't want private property at all. They said, you don't need to own anything. Where have we heard this? Just recently at the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab says
you will own nothing and be happy, right?
That's right. So, you can see the thread through history. I'll explain a little bit more as we go along here, but these people set the tone for this new economic system. It wasn't about politics at all. If they could have driven all politicians out of the system, they would have done it right then. But they couldn't. They didn't, and they couldn't, and they weren't successful and the future as well. But we'll look at again. Look at we'll look, I think, at the pressure against politicians today vis-a-vis technocracy, the technocrats. You can see there's still the antipathy towards politicians. Basically, get your hands off of us, basically.
Mhm.
There's a big push right now, for instance, to deregulate AI. Well, some of us think that might not be a good idea, or some say, well, it's going to be a good idea. But you can see the pressure for politicians to stand down at this point, and the same thing at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about technology and things like AI and its ability to cause amazing, things at the same time, terrible things.
Yes.
And it all depends on who's doing the programming and whether they have the foresight to foresee every explicable variable, that could come into play. In a way, they're creating something that eventually I don't believe they'll be able to control. And that is, I think, that is the doomsday approach at looking at it. But we've got all kinds of history going back of, the existence of man and mistakes that they made, but how hubris, ultimately brought down various civilizations. And so I do worry that there's something coming and that none of us are prepared for it. With AI, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at like just how dependent we are on technology, I don't think most people would know how to survive if all of a sudden electricity was gone.
You're probably right.
And I'm sure AI knows that.
Yes, indeed. Well, AI has morphed now into the consummate weapon for technocrats and technocracy to survive at this point. And it is being weaponized against us. I think there's lots of signs of that from a purely technical point of view and government point of view as well. In this administration, especially for the first time, I think, in history, the technocrats have basically descended on Washington, D.C. with a force that can't be hardly describe what's going on, but with the business of with Doge and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all this kind of stuff, it's like, wow, all of a sudden they've all flip-flop from being flaming leftists to being flaming MAGA supporters. What? How does this work?
At Trump's inauguration, you had Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, basically standing next to each other, and it was a weird sight to see. And
it really was.
I do have my red flags start going up, and I see the same thing with, quite honestly, there seems to be these different groups that are vying for power, right?
Mm-hmm.
During COVID, obviously, it was the drug companies, the pharmaceutical industry. You saw I love that people have taken this term. They've said the pharmaceutical industrial complex, of course, you got the military industrial complex, but there's also like the social media, big tech industrial complex. And that is where a lot of the money and the power is, because they have the ability to manipulate the minds of the public through their algorithms, which we see all the time. That's why when, you can be talking to your wife about something, your phone's listening and it's feeding into this, loop back feed so that it reinforces, any idea that you have of, buying something or, it's literally taking note of everything that you do. Websites you go to, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of things you're buying, where you live, the temperature. I mean, all of these things are being played into these algorithms. Right now, it seems to be primarily designed for marketing, but it's not that far to take a marketing program and turn it into a propaganda program, right? Or turn it into something else even more nefarious.
Absolutely. You remember when we saw COVID came along, and all the censorship that was just rampant, and it was overt. It wasn't subtle at all. But all these people got canceled and fired from their jobs. But people got thrown out of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, just left and right, right? Yeah. Well, this is now, you're not going to see this again. I do not think we're not going to see it just like that way. What now has happened, AI is taking over this role now of shaping the thinking of people so that they don't say the things that they don't want them to say.
Right. Yeah.
And this is altogether different, much more sophisticated. It's very, very subtle because you don't understand
ourselves.
Exactly. So, it's like, well, you can't put your finger on it, but when you're affected by it, all of a sudden your brain, your processes just seem to go haywire. And all of a sudden you see yourself saying things you never would have said 5 years ago, for instance. So this is a very subtle twist, I think, to AI and its role in society today. And remember, when we talk about the science of social engineering, this is it. This is it right now in front of us.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Where do you think? To me, it's like, I look at technology and I look at regulation, and I'm leery of both of them, right? And I don't trust the government. So why should I trust them to regulate? Because I think that they manipulate technology. We saw that with the Twitter files, for example, where the government had a backdoor access. The FBI was paying $9 million a year to be able to influence their stories that they were putting out and to get them to pull stories and censor. And at the same time, left to their own devices, if the government's not involved in regulation, then I have to wonder, will we not find ourselves under a different set of taskmasters, that enslave us through credit or enslave us through, various means of social control from, social media? Where do we find the balance between the two? Because you're right, the politician and the technocrat are ultimately, I think, enemies.
Yeah. This is this is an age-old question. How do you want your poison delivered? Well, there's safety in numbers. I could argue this way. There's safety in numbers when you have 600 people arguing over whatever was going to happen, over legislation, etc. It's a very slow process. They don't get anything right along the way, but nevertheless, there's kind of a buffer between what happens eventually and what happens in Congress, right? But with the technocrat movement at this point, where everything is like centralized and into a system that's weaponized against everybody, there's no way that you can have any accountability with that kind of a system.
Yeah.
And the technocrats are just as hardcore authoritarians as any politician has ever been. So to think that somehow a technocrat will arise who's benevolent, he wants to help people, say somebody like Peter Thiel, for instance. So, if he became God all of a sudden, or the supreme ruler or the head technocrat, we'd all be in big trouble in a heartbeat. It wouldn't take any time at all to enforce another thing on society. So, how do you want your poison? Well, you can get it slower with politicians, faster with technocrats. I don't like either choice, but
at least with politicians, they've got to win our votes again. Well,
that's right.
Or they have to at least be able to buy enough of our votes. That's really what they're doing. They spend billions of dollars on advertising, and a lot of that money is funneled by the technocrats to get people that are going to push their agendas. But at least with politicians, there is the possibility of removing them. I'd say that's a lot less likely for,
Yes.
these multi-billionaire, technocrats that, they answer to no one.
That's right. That's one. In fact, that's one of the signs of a technocrat. They're never elected to anything, and they're not accountable to anybody. You can see them work. When you see them working their magic, if you will, whatever they do, you won't find anybody able to rein them in. They're just going to do what they want to do and let the pieces fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know how many of the technocrats that are out there hold passports in multiple countries. I'll bet you, because I don't really believe that most technocrats have any sense of loyalty to nation. I see them as they see themselves as internationalists.
Yes.
Would you say that is true of most technocrats?
I would say so. And, it's interesting. There's, I think, three of the tech bros that were part of the PayPal mafia were born in South Africa. And I can't imagine why South Africa, but I'm not making it a conspiracy here either. But these people have multiple citizenships around the country, or world rather. Elon Musk, for instance, he was born in South Africa. He's still a resident. He's a citizen there. And he also has citizenship in Canada as well, because his mother was apparently born in Canada. So, and he's an American citizen as well. So I think this is probably pretty common.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. With your new book, tell us about your new book, and kind of, you mentioned here the evil twins of technocracy and transhumanism. We've talked about the technocracy part, but explain to me or to our audience what transhumanism is and kind of what the main principles that these technocrats see or are trying to achieve.
You bet. Yeah. This is easier to understand in the context of the World Economic Forum, I think, for most people. Klaus Schwab talked about this. He's not talking now, but he was formerly the head of the World Economic Forum. When he talked about the Great Reset, he was looking for the economic system to be reset, the thing that drove society forward, right? So he talked about this Great Reset that's going to be really good. It's going to be resource-based, basically technocracy. But at the same time, he talked about humans 2.0 that should be populating his new utopian system, right? Because their logic was, well, if we take old humanity and pour them into our new reset world, they'll just wreck it anyway. There's no point to do that. So you can kind of see the logic behind it. They had to talk about humanity 2.0, and that's exactly what people like Harari talks about, the technology going under your skin and the constant surveillance and the hacking the human animal, with genetic engineering and stuff like that.
Yeah,
this is pretty crazy stuff, but considering what happened during the COVID era, especially, and all the stuff that got injected into people, you have to wonder, is somebody messing with humanity to try and create humans 2.0 to put into this new society that they're trying to build?
It does make you wonder. The mRNA technology, it does apparently change and alter your DNA. It's a gene editing, it's gene editing viruses, essentially, is what it is. So turns your body into a factory for the the spike protein.
Exactly. let me say also that there's another aspect of transhumanism that's purely metaphysical. There's been a group of people over the decades, probably even maybe the centuries, who wanted to conquer death. And of course, they couldn't. Nobody's ever done it. They talk about it, but they can't do anything. Well, the scientists today who are researching longevity and DNA issues, genetics, they think this is crazy, but they've concluded that death is just like any other disease, like cancer or having a virus or something. They think, well, it's just something to conquer. It's a disease that we can conquer. Therefore, you can live forever. If we get rid of death, then you can live on and on and on and on and on and on. This is a crazy idea, but now that with the science that the body of science has been developed in the last 20 years, 25 years anyway, they think now that they have a shot at it. And they're going for broke at this point.
Well, that to me seems to make sense when you consider that most of these guys are anti-human. They are anti. They want to lower the population of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine if you had a plan to live forever, you would want to lower the population of the earth. You don't need to populate the earth as
Yes.
in the way that we do now for a replacement level. So it makes sense that they are all about pushing, abortion and birth control, and then on the other side, euthanasia and get vaccinated, and of course it ends up killing you. It seems to me that has to be part of their plan, because they can't seriously believe that they're going to solve the problem of death and not have an overpopulation problem, in short order after.
Exactly. You would think that would go hand in hand. When you consider, by the way, we were hit really hard in America with the vaccine issue. We had so many people die, and everybody seems to know somebody has died over the vaccine. But having said that, we were not the only ones in the world that were affected by this whole thing. So you have to ask the question, who has the clout, who has the even the chutzpah to see the vaccination of over 72% of the world vaccinated within a short period of time with one or more shots? Who calls the shots on a global system like that? Well, it certainly wasn't the politicians in America, I guarantee you. There's no way. And you can't look to England either. They were hit hard as well. But you can't really point to any country per se that orchestrated this whole thing. So you almost conclude there's a ruling class of people and they're somehow calling the shots, or you could ascribe it to the devil himself, who wants to kill everybody anyway. But either way, you can see the hand that is orchestrated this whole thing is totally anti-human. It's totally anti-civilization, and it's very destructive. And it wasn't just about the people that died. God rest their whole soul. All those people that died, they're gone. But the people that remain, who have been degraded, their systems have been degraded to where many can't think straight now. They still have fog in their brain, if you will. They can't function like they used to. Their immune systems are basically shot, and they get sick all the time. And there's chronic diseases.
Yeah, it still amazes me to this day that, like I had somebody close to me recently that, was questioning my bringing up the fact that these booster shots actually damage the immune system. There's two major studies, one out of Germany, one out of Texas, that show that if after the second or third booster shot you go through a IgG shift, which is your immunoglobulin, which basically is the main part of your immune system, stops noticing things that it should be noticing. It basically, it causes it to ignore the spike protein, so your body won't even attack it. And that is the most toxic part of the coronavirus. You can't, if your body doesn't stop those spike proteins, then it's going to damage your arteries. It's going to damage your epithelial cells.
You got it. I know. It's really serious.
So it blows my mind that you've got people who won't even read. I've got your signal's breaking up a bit. It might actually be mine, but let's give a minute here. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
So yeah, I think that there's a blindness that seems to be existing, because even though the studies are there, they're out there. If anybody's willing to look at them, although the media won't talk about it.
Even today, they won't talk about it at all. And there have been so many peer-reviewed studies at this point. I think probably more than 300 at this point, that from one aspect or another pour cold water on the whole thing. And yet the media at this point doesn't want to talk about it. The establishment doesn't want to talk about it.
Well, the media has to, and I would say even the politicians have to kowtow to the pharmaceutical companies, because they're the primary people funding their campaigns, funding their commercials.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, watch Fox News and count how many medical industry, either pharmaceutical or medical industry companies are advertising there. It's almost all of them. Yeah. So if you are, if you're beholden to Pfizer or beholden to Johnson & Johnson, you're not going to talk bad about the person that's paying your bills.
Exactly. This is a good time to interject another thought. Back in 1992, when the Rio de Janeiro conference, sponsored by the UN, was held, and they produced this document called Agenda 21. And they also ran a parallel conference at the same time that it was called the Biodiversity Convention. And in that mix of the doctrine that was actually is sustainable development, but nevertheless, one important definition changed. Before 1992, when you mentioned biodiversity, you would think, well, it's this is the species of the animals in the forest, and the forest itself, and the species of the trees, etc., whatever, the ecosystem even. And you think you would never include humans in that mix, because the former thinking was, well, humans are in charge of all the ecosystems of the world for their support and maintenance. And so everybody into this day seems to understand that part of biodiversity, but they changed the definition specifically on purpose at the Biodiversity Convention to include humans with the ecosystem. This was a huge sea change, because all of a sudden, the humans became something to manage, if you will, resource to be managed. And so all of a sudden you see these giant pharmaceutical companies managing the herd, if you will. And they think they have got their God's answer on the earth to manage the whole human herd. This is a totally, in my opinion, a totally demonic idea that we should be managed.
Let's take this to its logical course. Let's say that we were to give up our control of our lives to our benevolent AI. And that AI looked at our example as how to manage all of the Earth's resources, including humans. Well, look what we do when a few chickens get the flu. We kill all the chickens. Would AI say, oh, we got an outbreak of disease over here? That's all right. Nuke that whole area. We don't want that disease spreading to the rest of the humans. It's pretty scary.
It's pretty logical too. I mean, if you're just a computer, that makes perfect sense. I guess a human would never do that. Well, actually, there are humans doing it right now. That's killing all the chickens or all the beef or whatever. But that's a bad outcome when you think about it that way.
Yeah, your signal was cutting out pretty bad there for a minute. So it's probably on my end. We've had some pretty bad weather. That's I'm unfortunately out here in the sticks, so we use Starlink, and it's usually pretty good. But we got some issues when we've got a whole lot of lot of rain and that sort of thing. So because it does carry on the airwaves. Now let's talk about transhumanism a little bit more. What are some of the examples that you've seen, whether in these different agendas or, whether different social movements that are going on being backed and funded by the technocracy? Where do you see transhumanism being played out right now?
Well, here's a good example. Elon Musk is probably the arch technocrat of the century. His grandfather, by the way, was in charge of the technocrat movement in Canada for several years. He understands technocracy, right?
That's interesting.
So he's a transhuman. He's poured hundreds of millions of dollars into life extension companies, and famously, he's invented this company called Neuralink. Probably a lot of people heard of that. Basically, to insert wires into your threads of wires into your brain to make a connection with the various areas of your brain that can read your signals and put signals in. And of course, he says, at first he said, well, we're just going to help the blind to see and the lame to walk, sort of thing.
Sure.
But then he said later, this is going to be something that everybody on Earth will want at some point. So,
sure.
We see the handwriting on the wall here. This is a transhuman thing where the merger of technology with humans, the flesh of humans, is seen. You'll see this in many other places. Many other companies in the country are working on this kind of idea. Wearables are also another aspect of this. Wearable technology like your Apple Watch, your Fitbit, the Amazon just came out with a new product called Bee, crazy stuff. But all of this technology is designed to collect information from you and process that with an AI system on the back end.
What do you think is where's the line? The balance between technology that saves lives and, going too far. I mean, I think about terms of integrating technology. I mean, pacemakers are a good example of technology that gets integrated with the human body is, save countless lives. Insulin pumps, another one,
Yes.
So where, as a human race, how do we integrate with technology without allowing it to go too far, and where is that line?
It's probably going to be different for different people. I have a pacemaker myself, believe it or not, and I'm glad I'm okay with it. Whoever invented that, I don't have the history on it off the top of my head, but whoever invented the pacemaker, I'm sure that he did it with a benevolent thought that he's going to help people, right? And same thing with insulin pumps and the technology that works in that area. I'm sure that those people had a heart and they thought they were helping people. This is altogether different than a mind of a technocrat. They don't care if they help anybody. That's the problem. And so the technology that helps humans should be encouraged. This has always been my position, even going for all my life. Actually, I've loved technology all my life. if you use technology to help your fellow man live better, live longer, whatever, that sort of thing, that's just great. But if you want to take over the world, and you're you remember
So how
that
do you tell
song?
the difference though between somebody that right, like we were just talking about, these guys are sneaky. They say, "Oh, we want to do this Neuralink thing so that, people who can't walk right now will be able to walk," right?
Yes,
That's one of
yes,
the big
exactly.
ones. And if they
Mhm,
can accomplish that, that would be a pretty amazing thing. But
mhm.
at the same time, if their intent, or let's say that they don't have that intent, but somewhere in the company later on, maybe a generation down the road, they get some new leader and they decide to take the company in a different direction and start conducting mind hacking and,
Mhm.
and mind control with, these Neuralinks. I mean,
Yes,
who's to stop that? And that's where I do believe that there's still a need for regulatory requirements,
yes.
but I see that as a very difficult thing to enforce on international companies that are multinational.
Oh, yes. Case in point, when gain of function research, viral research was outlawed outright in
They just
America,
sent it to another country.
what did they do? They sent it to China and just gave them the money, say, "You do it. We'll deny all whatever, plausible deniability at that point, and God bless you, go for it." Well, how many times have we seen this thing happen just like this, even with technology, even like with AI that might even escape and go to China to be perfected, and then it comes back to us again in a worse form. Um, it's
Do you
so
think it would?
hard to. Well, the politicians, in the case of the gain of function research, they did a great job, I think, by flat say, "You're not going to do this here. Period. Shut down your labs if you have to. You're not going to do it here." They just didn't bother them at all. They said, "Well, we're above it. We don't need the law. We don't need no stinking law. We'll just take it
Mhm.
all over to China and let them do it." It's crazy.
You're right, and they do this anytime that we create a new law, they find a way around it.
Hmm.
We've seen
Yeah,
this with just about every industry too. So,
we have.
how do we? I think like when you have something that is that important, something that could be life altering for human beings, right? We have nuclear weapons treaties for that reason
Hmm.
that are
Yeah.
ratified between nations. I don't know if there was a treaty that was signed, but there certainly was a movement that when Dolly the sheep was cloned, they made it, they had struck international
Mhm.
agreements to say, hey, we will not clone human beings. The ethicists around the world came together and said, we
Yeah.
need to create a bioethicist, association to deal with this. I
Mhm.
don't see that being done when it comes to AI. And I
No.
certainly
Mhm.
don't see that being done when that comes to biotechnology. And those are two areas that I have major concerns over. Now, obviously, vaccines as well. They're the standard, Hippocratic oath doesn't seem to apply to the scientists making vaccines. Do no harm is not in their vocabulary. Yeah, I think it used to be because there were actual real consequences, but Congress basically gave them, and they did
Immunity.
this. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did this during the Reagan administration. They gave them basically a free pass,
Mhm.
and and now we're left with the destruction on the human genome and everything else as a result of this these COVID vaccines that they essentially coerced half of the American public to take.
Mhm.
So we have to, I think, find champions that are going to try and champion treaties over these types of issues. Like,
Yes.
I can't believe we have not already seen AI and its potential to be a weapon of mass destruction.
Mhm.
Just the cyber warfare. I deal in the world of cyber warfare as my
Mhm.
day job, and I can tell you right now, they're getting to the point now where they won't even consider cybersecurity technology that doesn't have integrated AI, because the polymorphic code that's able to change itself so that it
Mhm.
can be hidden amongst virus scanners and things like that is so advanced that you'll miss like 90% of the viruses that are out there or malware that's out there if you don't have an integrated AI to help identify it, because that's how much it changes so quickly. So why is there not treaties amongst the nations? You know, like these are things like if the UN has any purpose at all that is possibly good, that should be one of them, to decide that, hey, look, we've got this thing called AI. We all want to, you know, learn to use it. We all want to, you know, to find ways of helping it, you know, help our you know, our economies and our culture and, you know, and all these things. But we should all agree that it should not be used for this or for this or for that, just like they did with cloning. They all came together and said, you know what, we're not going to allow cloning on humans. Is there any movement at all that you're aware of?
I haven't seen any. I would like to see it, honestly. You know, if even 5 congressmen and 3 senators would listen to your show right now, they'd be the wiser for it. And I think they would be alarmed to figure out what's going on. How are they being bamboozled by these technocrats in the first place? There's no reason they should trust these people, but they are, apparently, because they're taking whatever they want, whatever a technocrat wants to get in a bill. Oh, no problem. Just give it to me and I'll make sure it gets in there. If they knew what they were doing, maybe they would stop and think.
Yeah. Well, these are the same people who signed or, you know, didn't ratify, they signed the bill that went forward and continued to fund Section 702 of FISA, which has been abused 256,000 times in 2013 alone.
I know.
And that's a federal judge saying that. So when you think about what that means that 257,000 American citizens had their digital data spied on by the NSA and ultimately unmasked by the FBI without a warrant, illegally. They violated their rights, yet not a single FBI agent's gone to jail for that. Not a single, you know, person in Congress decided to stop it. They're supposed to protect us, but they continue to fund. That's the one power the Congress has, is the power of the purse strings. But it would seem to me something got disrupted in the ecosystem of politics, if you will, at the passing of, or at the ruling of Citizens versus, what was it? The U.S. government versus Citizens United. When they basically said that, the Supreme Court said that we're going to allow a corporation to have the same rights as a citizen of the United States, and they have free speech, so therefore they can spend as much money as they want to get people elected. And that's ultimately, it led to the biggest you know, amount of dark money we've ever seen in politics. So we don't even know, which is the crazy thing is that we got people who are getting dark money from various corporations, various LLCs, various other charities and or 501c4s. You've got cryptocurrency companies that are paying hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising in these elections. And that money, as far as we know, could be coming from China, could be coming from Iran, could be coming from anywhere in the world. And the thing is nobody knows, because the FSC can't touch it. It's clouded under the IRS, and the IRS doesn't, you know, or is not supposed to, you know, release records and stuff like that.
Wow. You know, I have a solution. This is my pipe dream. I have a solution. If we just erected a chain link fence around the Capitol building and didn't allow any lobbyist to cross that barrier, bar none, don't under penalty of getting charged with something, okay? That they can't go and pester any legislator, period. That would force the legislators in the Capitol building to write their own bills. Imagine that.
Well,
they're paid to do.
So that is, yeah, that's definitely one of the issues, because, and that happens in state politics too.
Oh,
where
yes.
somebody comes in and says, hey, we want this bill. and wink, wink, nod, nod. We'll make sure and support you on your next election. And then they send in their lawyer to actually write the bill for them and send it to them and put it on their lap. But in all fairness, this is where we gotta look at it as a two-way street. The NRA does the same thing. The NRA sends their lobbyist in there and they write the bills for the politicians, and I'm thankful for it. You've got other people who write the bills for pro-life stuff. So there's the word lobbyist has such a nasty connotation because money gets involved.
Yes.
If it was just simply what the original word lobbyist means, which was somebody that was standing outside the lobby of the congressman who wanted to talk to them in between sessions, that I don't think most people have a problem with. But there's two things that they could do immediately that I think would solve a lot of these problems. No more secret meetings. While you are working and while you are meeting with anybody for official business at all, it should be recorded digitally and made available publicly. There should be no secret meetings for anybody who's supposed to be representing us. I think that is one of the things that they could do right off the bat. And I think it would be, especially when it comes to meeting with, lobbyists, or the only exception to that I would say would be if the person they're meeting with is a whistleblower, then yes, it should be completely, kept secret. Just like if they're meeting about something classified in a skiff, then I'm fine with that being secretive. But everything else that they do, it should be public. The whole conversation should be recorded. And if they don't want to be able to, if they don't want to be on camera, they don't want their voice being recorded, then they should make sure that and I'm sure they'll find ways around it, but it should not be under the auspices of their title. That should come with the job, should be a requirement for there to be greater transparency.
Yes, indeed.
And I don't think that they're going to vote that for themselves. I really doubt it. But if they did, it would be the best thing for them, because then they wouldn't have that temptation. They wouldn't have that pressure coming from outside firms. And then the other thing that should happen is that I do think that anybody that runs any kind of political advertising for a candidate, and I think that's key. I think issues is a different story, but if somebody runs any kind of advertisement for a candidate, that should be made publicly available, and that should be the law. I don't think that anybody should be able to run advertising for somebody and we don't know where that money is from, because they have to have a means of being able to verify that we're not having foreign influence in our elections.
Yep. I agree with that too.
Yeah. So sounds to me like, we're both in agreement that Congress needs to do a better job, of enacting some rules to put a cap on some of these things, or to ensure that there's proper oversight, because it seems to me that the way they're moving forward right now, I talked about this with friends of mine that, having been formerly in the intelligence community, I think about our surveillance systems, for example, and how surveillance is now considered. It is considered a domain of warfare, right? They have counter surveillance teams. They've got digital surveillance teams that are and cyber warfare teams that do those types of attacks. And so when you think about that, and it's a fact that intelligence, I guess is what I meant to say, is a domain of warfare. And the Second Amendment was designed so that we could defend ourselves against the government by having the same weapons of warfare that they have. We are so far gone from that idea now. The government has all the intelligence, 100% of it.
Yeah.
We have none of it. The technocrats, they have a whole lot of intelligence, in some ways, maybe more than what the government has. But it's a different kind of intelligence. But when you add those two things, I think you have what could take over the country, because you have the very thing that can see into everybody's mind, and it becomes like that movie with Tom Cruise, Minority Report.
Boy, exactly right. When Doge came into Washington, D.C., the public purpose was to spot corruption and slice a budget, whatever. The main target, as it's been revealed now, was not that, but it was to establish a control over the data flows off of all of these agencies in the first place. They've been all exposed at this point, and now Palantir has been selected as the system of choice to put all that together in one nice, tidy data flow to let Palantir do this. Now, this is the government doing this, but it's a merger between, at least in purpose, is a merger between those two entities at this point. What will Palantir do with that data? Well, we can suppose it won't be good for Americans if it ever gets weaponized against us, and it very easily could. But this was the whole purpose of Doge in the first place, to engineer the data flows to get pumped into another higher system. Now Palantir has chosen to be that higher authority, if you will, over all that data.
Wow,
that's a lot of data. I'll tell you what. Yeah.
Well, my biggest fear is that, look, I know that there are always going to be evil people, and there are always going to be those that plot and scheme to try to take over. That's just human nature, going all the way back to the beginning. But the sad part is that it is all preventable if people were willing to do their duty and their due diligence, and to understand these things, and to call and talk to their representatives, and talk to their state representatives as well, and and their governors. I mean, that honestly, like, I don't have any expectation of Congress saving us from anything, but the states might, if there's enough brave, righteous people in office to actually do the right thing and take an interest in, it seems like so many of them have no idea about anything about technology. Like, many of them are they're not up on what's really going on in the world today. They have no idea about security risks with cybersecurity or with AI or any of this stuff. And so they really don't have awareness, of that sort of thing. Have you seen? We've seen this movement, right, with the election integrity. All these different various groups going and meeting with Congress, and I'm sure that the members of the state legislatures have probably become much more well versed in what goes on during an election because of it. We need to see the same type of thing for, like, I don't even know what the right term is, but what would you call it if there was a group or an organization to go meet with state legislators to inform them about the dangers, the benefits, but also the things that they need to watch out for of, the latest and greatest technology being developed?
Great idea. Great idea. I've been offering myself any time to talk to groups that include legislators. I don't have too many offers, but I'm available. I'll say that. Other people could be available as well, but what we
almost like a risk assessment or a risk manager.
Yes.
For that type of field, we almost need that in each of our state houses. Yeah,
we really do. And at the city level as well, the people at the city level, city council people, these are the lowest information people imaginable. This is the bottom of the heap probably, and citizens have access to these people. However, these are your neighbors, for Pete's sake. You could get your hands on them and talk to them just like normal people. By and large, unless they're knuckleheads, and there's some, but by and large, they'll be willing to listen to anybody who has a rational argument to tell them. But people don't want to do that. I've been harping on this for 15 years. Go local first. Go local. Think global if you want, but go local and educate your people where you live. They're the only people that can put a firewall around you at this point to all this stuff coming in. And they're the last line of defense against all of this technology. So, there are big stakes here.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a fascinating show. This type of topic it's a stressful one for me because I see probably better than most people the dangers that are upcoming and the fact that we're not doing enough to protect ourselves, let alone is the government doing enough to protect our country. And but at the same time, if we give them too much power and too much authority, they will abuse it. There's no doubt about it, because that has been what we've seen the history show. So to me, that means the only way that we win this battle with technology that our enemies are weaponizing and that those enemies are not just foreign nations like the communist Chinese, but it's also the technocracy, that is trying to rule the world in their own way.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that if we don't step up as individuals and start sounding the alarm on these issues and educating ourselves, then it's only to our own demise.
Amen. I say, yeah, exactly. I'll second that motion.
So Patrick, we've talked about a lot. What is the most important thing that you want folks to take away from our conversation tonight?
Number one, I want to say, God gave you a brain. Don't abuse it. Don't abuse it. Engage it. Think for yourself. Get your own mind straightened away on the stuff we're talking about here. And then make decisions for yourself. At this point, you really don't need to go outside of your own head, probably. You have enough information, even if you just listen to this one show, you have enough information at that point, you can do something to change yourself. And it all starts in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a reason the Bible tells us we're supposed to guard our mind and our heart, right? First your mind. And if you don't do it, who will do it for you? There's nobody can do it. Only you're the only one responsible for yourself. You can't expect somebody else to come in and guard your brain. So that's the first step. I can't emphasize that enough. I see so many people hear a message like this. It goes in one ear, picks up speed, and then goes out the other ear. And it makes no impact at all on them. People, stop that. Just stop. You can think for yourself, and if you don't, like you're saying, if there'd be no hope for people like that, if they don't want to think, well, it's sad, but what can you say?
Patrick, where can people follow you? Are you on social media? Do you have a website?
I do. Most all of my work is on technocracy.news, not .com, but technocracy.news. My books are there. My boot camp is there. All articles. I've been doing this now for almost 15 years. I have over 6,700 articles posted on this website. It's a treasure trove of information for anybody who wants to understand the deeper things of technocracy and transhumanism. So that's the place to go at this point. There's no other site on the internet like it. We're heavily censored. So if you go to technocracy.news, bookmark it immediately so you don't lose it. But you won't find us typically in the search engines at this point. So
wow. Well, what is the boot camp? I'm curious.
Well, my boot camp, I created like an e-learning course with about 25 hours of training, and I put videos in with text and try to make it bite-sized, following the timeline from 1932 to today, and so people can get the whole picture at one time. And lots of people have taken me up on it. I only charged $30 for it, not much money, but it's been profitable for some people, in any case, who like to learn that way.
Well, that's good to know. Well, folks, you've heard a lot tonight. There's a lot that we need to take responsibility for ourselves, but there's also what our founders understood as the providence of God. And those are the things that we can't control, where we can call upon him and ask for his assistance and his aid, to help our country guide its way through this advancement of technology. So I'm going to go ahead and close us in prayer. And Heavenly Father, I just thank you, Lord, for the work that Patrick is doing. I thank you, God, that people listening to the show are getting a chance to hear about the threat to our liberty and our freedom and this constitutional governance that we live under here. Lord, I pray that you would help people to recognize the importance of their duty to educate themselves, to learn about these things, to speak out to their representatives, to run for office if they're unsatisfied with their representatives. And Lord, I pray that you would inspire and motivate people around the country, Lord, to be more engaged. Lord, I thank you again for our guest tonight. I pray your blessing over him and for all of those that are watching. Be with them, Lord, and guide them into truth in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, Patrick, thank you again for joining the show. I really appreciate having you on, and I hope you'll come back. And,
Please.
As more information comes out, if there's a topic that, is about new breaking technology and the threat of what's going on, you're going to be my go-to guy I'm going to reach out to. So,
well, you know where I am, and you know where I live. You got my phone number and everything else. So I'm yours for the asking.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, folks, thank you. And remember to stay engaged and stay alert. This is Nate Cain signing off of the Raising Cain Show.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless, day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.